In this video, we are going to talk about painting. In the previous video, we talked about how to create fiber mesh in ZBRUSH and also how we can use nano meshes and micro meshes and micro poly. So these are different tools that will help you to add a lot of details and also a lot of polygons, a lot of meshes. And you can also use the groom brushes then to groom the fur or the air and also to paint parts of the mesh that has been generated with a fiber mesh. So it's a really complex set of tools, and also you can see here it's really realistic, but a little bit heavy actually if you don't have like a pretty strong computer, if you want to get these really tiny details. And you can see you can use it for clothing, you can use it for like armors, create like chainmail or like really tiny details on your meshes. So nano meshes, micro poly, and you can also customize them and so on, will create pretty realistic but heavy effects. Now, what you can do most of the time, if you want to create like less polygons and meshes that are less heavy, you can use brushing. You can use the painting and the sculpting. Now, in this video, we're going to focus a little bit more on the painting, and I'm gonna just deactivate the fur on this model that we also used in the previous videos, and we're gonna work a little bit with the painting. Now, the basic part of painting is about setting up the material. So we're gonna deactivate the Z add feature. We're gonna work with mRGB, and the first thing I usually do is fill out different parts here in the subtools with different materials that I can use as base material. And on top of that material, I will paint the various strokes and create different effects. So you can get pretty realistic effects just by using painting, but you can also use the texture, and we're gonna talk about that later on. Now we're gonna focus on the painting. So first of all, choose a material, choose a color, and fill your object with that material and color. Now, make sure that the base color is good. So if you have like a pretty dark color for something that you want to turn whiter, well, that's not good. Try to select another color. For example, here for the teeth, I'm using toy plastic, which is more bright. It's white, so that's the base. And then on top of that, I'm gonna darken out some areas, and I'm gonna use more brightness in other areas. So first of all, select your subtools and fill that mesh, that object, with a base color and also base material. So make sure that material RGB is on, and also RGB intensity should be like 100% if you want to fill it with 100%. Otherwise, it's gonna be like less intense. Now you can also paint with the material and color together. So you can paint different materials on your mesh, but it's gonna look a little bit awkward, especially if you don't have like really a lot of polygons. You can see there that there's gonna be the passage from a material to the other. So you should always keep the base material as a base and then paint with different colors. So right here, I'm using this one, which is green, like a dark green, gray. And you can see I'm starting to paint with a wider, a brighter color some areas. Now the bottom line is you need to be like accurate, and you need to paint those areas that are wider because they are like more exposed to the light. And you need to paint the darker parts with the darker colors because they are not affected too much by the light. And later in the video, I will show you how you can do that also with ambient occlusion. So you can help yourself with masks and ambient occlusion. Now, another thing you want to check is the little brush button there, because that's actually the visualization. And you can also go to the polypaint panel in the tool shelf. You can see there you can activate and deactivate colorize, which is essentially the possibility to put paint and visualize the paint on top of that. You have some also
other features here like polypaint from polygroups. So it's going to take the color from the polygroups and it's going to apply it to the entire mesh. And you can also adjust here, just like in Photoshop, you can adjust the hue, the saturation, the intensity, the RGB values. So if you want it more greenish or reddish, you can, you know, go on and define better what's your base material and color will be. And you can see here, you can also use this as a mask. So you have different ways you can generate masks and then use those masks to help in the painting process. Now let's start simple. I want to just paint with the standard color. So again, I'm going to make sure that the object is filled with a base color, with a base material. RGB intensity is 100, and then I can mask. So you can see if I hold control, I can mask, and I can also control click outside to invert the mask. And this is going to tell ZBrush where I want to paint and where I don't want to paint. And it's just like when we were sculpting. So then I will adjust the focal shift. If I want more blurriness on the edges, I can decide whether I want to use Z-add or only the paint, in this case only the paint, and then adjust the draw size, so the size of the brush. So usually you start with larger areas, bigger areas, and then you go smaller and smaller, just like we did with painting details and sculpting and detailing, and then finally adding like fiber meshes and nano meshes and all those tiny details. So it's the same thing for painting. So you start with a generic material, fill everything up, make sure intensity also it's again 100%. Otherwise, you can see here that I'm not able to fill the object with that gray because I have like a little bit of orange. So you can see there, I can still see the orange below, so I need to make the intensity 100% in order to fill out everything completely with standard material and colors. Now we're gonna see also later how we can work with materials again and textures, but we're gonna stick to the painting, simple 2D painting and color painting. So let me just zoom in here. Let's work with the teeth. So if I want to go in more details, I'm gonna decrease the size of the brush, and I will continue here to define the brush like with a stroke. You have different strokes that can be helpful. Let's start with this freehand, and now let's choose the base color again. So make sure that is the same, and then we will like make this teeth a little bit darker because teeth are not so bright, especially if you are like an animal. Probably you want this to be darker. So you can start with the darker areas, which probably are the ones that are less visible, less hit by light. Again, it's just a matter of shadowing. You can like create shadowing effects where you can make some parts brighter, make some parts darker. And probably here I will add a little bit of yellow paint around. So just as usual, as we saw also in the sculpting, the more you get into details, the more time you will spend because you have like these really tiny parts that you need to take care of. You can see that with this kind of shadowing effect, it's looking already more realistic than when we started. Also, I'm gonna increase some subdivisions on these teeth to make them look more realistic. So subdivisions also are important when you need to paint because you are actually painting on polygons and you want to have a lot of polygons when you want to get into details. Now I want to do the eyes, so I want to go here in the spheres and I want to add some color, and I'm not going to use this simple stroke. I'm going to use this case drag rectangle because this is going to create a single stroke essentially, and I just need to define the size. So I want to make this dark and then click and drag inside the eye sphere. Also, I'm going to increase the divisions before I do that so I can get more detailed painting.